Hi everyone, my name is Mark Scheeren, and I've worked with substance users for 29 years. I am the co-founder of the St. Jude Retreats, which is now the Freedom Model Retreats. We just changed the name. I was sitting here driving to work, and I was inspired to make this low production video because I've just been talking to literally over the last, 20 some odd years, thousands and thousands of families who wonder why they send their kid to 5 or 6 rehabs, and each rehab their son or daughter gets worse. And they take the blame themselves. They feel horribly guilty. The treatment centers convince them that their child is to blame, doesn't want the program enough, whatever that program might be. But is it happenstance that we spend $35 billion a year in treatment and the problem has only gotten worse? Has that escaped everybody? Now, I don't expect families to understand why that is, because they're just trying to save their children, or spouse, or friend, or themselves. There's reasons. There's reasons why treatment doesn't work, and the biggest reason is this isn't a disease, so there's no treatment for a non-disease. I know that's a hard concept for some people because you've heard it over and over repeated. And in our culture, a lie repeated enough becomes the truth. But I think it's important for people to know unequivocally that a heavy substance use habit is not a disease. It's not a disorder. It's a series of choices based on a person's perceived lack of other options. It's something that they enjoy at a certain level. They prefer it at the time they're doing it. And but there's no treatment necessary. Now, I know people are going to jump all over this and say, well, what about detox? There's physical dependence. I'm not talking about the physical dependency and toxicity. If you are physically dependent on a drug like alcohol, benzodiazepines, opiates, just talk to your doctor and go to a detox. In 3 to 7 days, you'll be fine. There is detoxification. There's no, I don't deny that. It's a toxic condition. That's why they call it detoxification. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about rehab. If you had cancer, would you go to a place like a rehab where you talked it out? Because that's the therapy, quote unquote. You talk it out. If you have a disease, do you talk out the disease? No, because there's a pathogen or an abnormal growth of cells. There's pathology involved. With a drinking and a drug problem, there is no pathology. What there is a person's preference for heavy use. That's what there is. And it's a mystery to people, for whatever reason, that a person would choose this for themselves. Well, I can tell you as an ex-drinker, I chose it for myself many years ago. It's going back 30 years. Because I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy the consequences. People say, well, if he enjoys it so much, does he like the DWI? Does he really want to go to jail? Does he want to overdose? Those are the costs we're willing to pay for our preference. And usually those costs come after the high. So when we're getting high, we're not saying to ourselves, geez, I really want to get drunk and I want to get a DWI. What we're saying is, I really want to get drunk and I hope I don't get a DWI. But if I do, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to pay that price at this moment for this high. And it isn't any more complex or complicated than that. Now, it becomes complex because we make up mythology that we're out of control. I was never out of control, and I've had plenty of blackout drunks and some pretty wicked consequences as a result of those episodes. So consequences are different than our motive to get high. We like to get high. We like to get drunk. And that's one of the reasons that people have a heavy substance use problem. There's a certain preference for it. And when we learn that our preferences can change, most people do. Over 90% of people with a drinking or drug problem, irrespective of the drug, will quit if you factor in age. Over time, they'll quit, whether they're treated or not, quote-unquote treated. If you know somebody that went to treatment and it worked for them, they got well in spite of the treatment. They gave credit to the wrong thing, because ultimately the only thing that can change a person is themselves. Nobody, no counselor, no addictionologist, no doctor can come inside somebody's head and change the content or motives of their thoughts. It's a simple, self-evident fact. You learn that in spades when you're a parent dealing with a teenager and you try to convince them to do something that isn't their will. They may say yes to your face, but inside, they're going to do what they want to do. And all people are autonomous in that way. So no counselor can go in, no program can go in and change the content of somebody's thoughts. That's an impossibility. So this treatment is a sham. This talk therapy is a sham. Alcoholics Anonymous, a sham. It's a 70-year history of a set of myths and mysticism surrounding a non-disease. We're treating a non-disease. Does that make any sense? Is it any wonder that we keep getting worse results? So, 30 years ago, I started looking at this. At the time, I was 19, 20 years old. I met a researcher who was doing research on why people failed in Alcoholics Anonymous. Why is it that 95 out of 100 people that go to AA leave after their first meeting? Well, they leave because they don't want to continually be told they're sick. They don't want to continually have to say they're an alcoholic when they're not even drinking. They want to move on. They don't want to be a part of daily support meetings. They don't want to be made weaker and sicker. They want to move on with their lives. So I think it's really important to know that you can get past this problem. So let me get back. 30 years ago, I started looking at it with Jerry, and then I lived at my first retreat for 12 years to really understand the problem. I went to over 3,000 AA meetings. I looked at it. I became a historian, an author on treatment and addiction. I also grew up in a family that was steeped in treatment. From my first memories, I was a part of the treatment industry complex, I call it. Because a lot of my siblings went to rehab. My mother was a counselor. And I was a part of that. And inside it didn't make any sense. And even when I was drinking every day, I knew I was choosing it. And I've since talked to tens of thousands of people who say the exact same thing. Oh yeah, I know it's a choice. But it's a difficult choice when you become confused. When you become confused by the mythology that the treatment industry has been basically promoting for 5 generations now. I mean, you hear it on TV, you hear it in shows, you hear it on the news. You're scared to death of an epidemic. Epidemic is the talk of disease. It makes it sound like heroin is walking down the street and is going to jump into your veins. Now, there's no doubt that the current wave of overdoses is sad. It is, and it's tragic, but it's needless. It's needless. People can move past this. They can. What they need to know is that they can move past it. Not that they're going to be diseased or that drugs have addictiveness. Do you honestly think that heroin contains addictiveness like an orange contains vitamin C? Why is it that most people, the vast majority of people who ingest or take painkillers don't get addicted? You didn't know that, did you? They don't, statistically. I can go through those statistics in a later video. I hope I'm not boring you. I just think it's important for people to know that they have control and that they can be happy. They can move on. They can change. They don't need to be treated. They don't need to go to support meetings. They don't need to forever be in the state of feeling fragile and sick and triggered to use. If you believe all of that to be true, it becomes true. I live that too. So it's really important to know that there's research that backs up everything I'm saying, that you're completely capable of change. And actually, and here I'm going to say something that's probably going to surprise you, and actually, when you know the facts, it becomes easy to get over a problem, a substance use problem. It really is. It's a problem like any other problem in your life that you need to move past. It's natural for the human being to problem solve and move past a problem. So I hope this video is giving you some hope, makes you know that if you've been to treatment a number of times, that you can stop that cycle completely, get out from under all the hopelessness narrative, disease narrative, and that you can learn to change your preferences, move on with your life, and be highly successful in whatever you want to be doing. All of this information, if you want it in a written form, is in the Freedom Model for Addictions, the book that myself, Stephen Slate, and Michelle Dunbar just published in November. It's gotten rave reviews, and it's got everything you need to move past your problem. All the information is there, all the research, all the facts. And for people who need more, need to stop the chaos of their life, there's the Freedom Model retreats as well. We have 2 retreats where we teach the Freedom Model and show people how to move past this. And basically we undo the treatment effect. We get rid of, through research and through the Freedom Model, how treatment has taught us to be sick. Yeah. So we have the only alternative to treatment. It's a non-treatment approach. It's education. And this isn't an ad. I don't want it to sound like an ad. I just want you to know that there's a way out of this. I didn't have that. I had to make it. So I hope that this brought you some hope.